TV60 and get the first 60 days free.
Welcome back. Republicans were able to take advantage of a wave of voter discontent to take back control of the U.S. Senate. Joining me from Washington are Jim Manley, Senior Director of Communications Practice at Quinn Gillespie & Associates, and Ron Bonjean, founder of the Bonjean Company. Gentlemen, welcome to Bottom Line. Jim, let me start with you. What happened last night? I don't think I can put it as succinctly as that. What happened to the Democrats?
And I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. We took a beating last night, nothing more, nothing less. So it's going to be up to us now to try and regroup and try and figure out where to go. But no doubt about it, we took a hard hit last night.
Ron, as was mentioned during my conversation with our White House correspondent, Margaret Tolliver, this isn't the first time that the president's been humbled by the voters in the midterms. Presidents Reagan, Clinton, and George W. Bush went through this as well. It's not so much now what it means for the party in control of Congress. It's what it means for the last 2 years of the Obama administration. Is part of his legacy now going to be having to compromise with the Republican majority?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see how President Obama will handle this. You know, I will say that the voters voted on President Obama's policies, and the president said that himself. They also voted against gridlock, you know. I mean, they voted against inaction in Washington. You know, when Senator Reid would go to the House floor and pound the Koch brothers and Koch Industries, they didn't want any of that. They wanted actual progress, and that wasn't happening. And they blamed the president. They also blamed the president for that too. And so now that Republicans have the majority, they have a chance to work with the president in a bipartisan way. We still have a brand building to do. Voters didn't necessarily vote for Republicans, so we need to convince them that we're able to govern correctly.
Jim, was last night, as Kentucky Senator Rand Paul said, a repudiation of President Obama's policy and leadership?
No, I honestly don't think that's the case. I think it was repudiation against the gridlock and paralysis that currently envelops Washington. A dynamic, by the way, that I think was engendered by Senator McConnell. That was his strategy all along, and he skillfully used it to run against it. But no, I do not believe it was focused specifically on the president.
But Jim, as you know, a lot of the pundits were saying last night what we have is an economy that appears to be gaining momentum, but it's not being felt by a majority of Americans. Sure, Wall Street's doing well, profits are up, corporate people are doing fine, but what about the average American? They're still struggling. And isn't the president, in their view, to blame for that because his party is in the White House and was in control of the Senate, at least up until last night?
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, I've got more than a few criticisms about the president, but I think he's done a good job in his team. But I think that he's done a good job of trying to steer the economy out of what was, you know, a debacle in 2007, 2008, with the greatest, recession since the Great Depression. So I understand that people still aren't feeling it. But certainly, if you look at the polls, that's certainly the case. But again, I think that the administration's done as good a job as they can there.
Ron, Senator McConnell once said that his goal was to make Barack Obama a one-term president. He did not succeed on that front. But is his goal now to frustrate a politically weakened president at every turn, or will he, as some analysts have suggested, look to cement his own legacy by looking for ways to compromise with the White House?
I think it's the latter. Look, the Republicans in the House and Senate have exactly 1 year to put together legislative accomplishments before the presidential 2016 cycle takes over. And they can't start thinking about who's going to be sitting in the Oval Office. There is a list of legislation that they need to develop, and I think that Speaker Boehner and Mitch McConnell should come out together with a united agenda and say, this is what we're going to work on behalf of the American people, and this is what we want to work with the president on, and start building that over the next year. And it's not going to be easy, and there will be problems, but I think that's the way they should do it.
And Jim, speaking of corporate America, I'm looking at my Bloomberg terminal. The market's up today. Did the markets like the results of last night's election?
I think that, as I understand it, traditionally the markets go up the day after an election, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. So, again, I think that if you look at it, this administration has been very, very good to Wall Street once we got out of the 2008 era recession. So it's difficult to argue against the numbers.
Jim Manley, Senior Director of Communications Practice at Quinn & Gillespie & Associates, and Ron Bonjean, the founder of the Bonjean Company, both joining me from Washington. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, we will check the post-election trading. Our senior markets correspondent, Julie Hyman, has an on-the-markets update. And stay with Bloomberg as we bring you live coverage and analysis of President Obama's news conference and his take on the Election Day fallout. Mark Halpern and John Heilman of Bloomberg Politics will anchor our coverage at 2:50 p.m. New York time. And again, streaming live on Bloomberg.com, the presumptive Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell in his press conference live from Louisville.
The all-new TLX from Acura.
If there's a precise way to do something, Spider ETF investors will find it. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Call 1-866-787-2257 for a prospectus containing this information. Read it carefully.
Have you ever heard about a country which offers exemption from taxes and customs duties up to 10 years? Stating